Christmas gift early. Is that what this is? Is that what this is? Now, it's interesting because not everybody's happy about it, right? About the Jets getting what would traditionally be called a meaningless win, right? And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the win. We'll talk about Zack Wilson and his truth-finding committee that support him through thick and thin. We'll talk about all that today on episode 142 of GreenBean's Jets Pod. Let me turn this off so YouTube doesn't get mad at me, or the NFL really. So anyway, yeah, we shut it off. All right, leave me alone, everybody. So guys, it's a good day if you're rooting for the Jets to win, right? And it's not like we were talking about it before the game stream. It's not one of those games that are just abysmal. You know, we show no life, but we sneak it out, 9-6, 6-3. And it's just a brutally obvious performance that we're inept, Like the Falcons game, we look terrible, right? We look terrible. The Giants game, we look terrible. The Patriots game, we look terrible. The Chargers game, we look terrible. The Raiders game, we almost had some life, but ultimately we look terrible. So all these games that, you just look and you can't see anything. You can't find any life. You can't find anything positive to root for. This week's game against the surging Houston Texans behind rookie quarterback sensation C.J. Stroud. I mean, the showing was one that gives people hope. And it's a funny thing because the Jets traditionally, historically, know how to do exactly this to us. Don't they know how to do it? Don't they know? So this gets us to do what? What does it get us to do? A win like we saw this week with Zack Wilson, Garrett Wilson, and Brees, and all the defensive guys, Sauce, Quinnen, all the guys. What does it make the hopesters, the hope truthers, what does it make that group think? We got a chance. Here we are. We got a chance. We're going to run the table, baby. It's going to be 5 straight 300-yard games from Zack Wilson, 2+ touchdowns per game. We're going to be a 9-8 team while the Chargers and Raiders and all those teams kind of crumble to the bottom. We rise right past them, and we sneak into the playoffs. And then everything changes, right? Once you're in the dance, once you get in, anything can happen. And I'll remind you, as slim of a chance as that is, in 2009, widely considered a part of the greatest recent period in Jets history, 2009 and 2010. 2008 was pretty good too, but we ended up, failing with Brett Favre and everything. 2009, Rex Ryan, after a loss, I feel like it might have been against the Falcons too. Weird, right? He comes out onto the podium and he says this: obviously, we just got eliminated from the playoffs. Obviously, the playoffs are out of the question, he said, right? And what happened that year? A chip fell here, a little chip fell over there, an unlikely chip rolled around over here, and we made it. And then we end up getting all the way to the AFC Championship game. And up until halftime, boy, oh boy, did we look like we just might be going to the Super Bowl, huh? Didn't it look that way? Until Peyton Manning just kind of zeroed in on the zone. He was threading needles. I mean, they were like a quarter inch. It was perfect. It was like a perfect second half for him. What are you going to do? You can't stop that. You can't stop it. When a truly elite, great player just decides he's in the zone. I mean, not decides, but he ends up in the zone and he's going to play elite. Yeah, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. Momentum starts and it gravitates to him. And there's a big ball of energy, a big sphere of energy. You can't stop it. You can't. But there we were. We thought we were out and we weren't. So this year, now look, we are now a 5-8 team. 5-8. 5 wins, 8 losses. Now, how did that go this season? Well, we started the season with Aaron Rodgers. He got 4 plays, Achilles. We end up winning that game on the heels of emotions and everything. But then we go and we lose 3 straight. Boom, boom, boom. We end up 1-3. Then we come back and we start winning. And we win 3 straight. Boom, boom, boom. Now we're 4-3, and we've got all kinds of hope. And then what do? We lose 4 in a row. Boop, 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 boop. So now we win. Now, if you're following the trends of the season, what does that tell you? We're bracing ourselves for a little streaky poo. Now, it sucks that we're going right into Miami. They're the number 1 seed right now in the AFC, so that's going to be problematic, right? We're going down to their house to play the number 1 seed. They already shellacked us, the fucking Hail Mary and all that stuff, so which I was at. Yay! I love going to games. So, but we're going, so, I mean, last time, it's like, it doesn't look so good. But Jets Miami, anything can happen. So let's say there's a chance. Can we at least settle on that? Can we settle on there's a chance? The Jets are not mathematically eliminated. The teams that are ahead of us are close, number 1. And, I mean, even Buffalo, 1 game, really. And then we got to get past tiebreakers and stuff, of course. But we're not like talking about it's craziness. Like, we go on a tear. I'm telling you. But again, you go back to the other side, and it's like, this is a meaningless game. The Jets do this. Of course they're going to win a game just to get everybody all lathered up. And all they're really doing is knocking themselves back from draft position, right? If we lose out, we could arguably get into the top 3. Definitely into the top 5. Currently, we were at pick 6 going into this week. Pick 6. That sounds good, right? We were at pick number 6 heading into this game. So we lose, you're talking about 5, and then slowly but surely you can get up to pick 3, which would all but guarantee you Marvin Harrison if you want him, Fusano, Alt, whatever guy you want. The quarterbacks are going 1 and 2, most likely, right? You got the Bears. They're not, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Justin Fields is doing to them what the Jets do to us. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe they believe. I don't think so. So they're going to take a quarterback. And you got the Patriots probably. Right now they're hovering around 2. So they're going to take. So the first non-quarterback taken is going to be pick number 3. So if the Jets are sitting there and you got Aaron Rodgers and you sign Ryan Tannehill, or let's even, if we lose out, then Zach had a bad time. So you take a Marvin Harrison, you pair him with Garrett Wilson, right? Now we're talking, baby. Or you get that left tackle, you move Becton to the right side, maybe a little bit better over there. He had a rough game this week. So who knows? But he's a good player. We know that. And now we're talking. And you use maybe your third on a guard or whatever the hell you want to do. Wide receiver. So now we're talking. You're talking about all your picks moving up to that top range. And you could even trade back, get a first for next year. Let's say you trade back to pick 6, and then you still get Alt because somebody else wants a quarterback, and then Marvin Harrison goes in one of the tackles, and you get so who knows? So much opens up. So I get it, but here's the problem for me. I want to just make this very clear. I did it in the draft stream. Now, the game stream this week with Jeremy, Jets Chaos. We had almost 1,000 of you guys in there. It was a wonderful, wonderful time. It really was. But I made my point, which is this. I have been rooting for tanks since high school. Now, I want to make this very, very clear. I wasn't always as able to be, into the draft as we are these days. There's so much information these days, right? So much. But for my part, back in the day, back in 1992, before the internet was a thing, I was a part of that crowd of people that was ordering, number one, Jets Confidential and all that kind of stuff. I forget the name. There were these like paper magazines. They were all the college players. And I would be reading those with my friends, looking at different guys. I remember one of the guys I liked, what the hell was his name? Percy Snow. Remember that guy? I was reading about him in the gym. I was laying on my stomach in the gym at Parsippany High School, leafing through this magazine, looking at. So the truth is I've been doing this a long time. Again, there are guys way better than me and all that. But I'm in this pocket. I've been paying attention for a long, long, long time, and it's been miserable. Number one, when we do tank, well, number one, it's tanking. So you're rooting for the team that you want to win to lose, which sucks. It's like it's contrary, right? It sucks, but we do it because we want it to benefit next year. Fair, fine, great. Then the problem is, most of the time, when your team, the Jets, when we get up there, the team doesn't take who we want anyway. Don't do it. The one year, Keyshawn, that was great. They took Keyshawn, skiddly-doo. Remember Warren Sapp? They didn't do that, right? Remember Parcells had the number 1 overall pick? Take Orlando Pace. Take Walter Jones. Both of them are in the Hall of Fame. Nope. Trade back for a 3rd, a 5th, and a 7th, and take James Farrior, who had a better career with the Steelers than us. So I didn't want James Farrior. You know what I mean? What about Brian Thomas over Ed Reed? Doesn't matter, man. So it doesn't necessarily go the way you want it to go, but it does give us that opportunity to have excitement and everything before the draft. But here we are. I have been rooting for tanks since high school, and the Jets are not out of it. I've seen it before. I just gave you the most recent example. 2009. And let me tell you this. Last year, remember we all talked about we need 10 wins to get into the playoffs last year. The Jets lost 7 straight to end last season. If they would have won one more game, they were in the playoff. If they beat the Jags, we were in. Remember? 8 would have did it. We couldn't do it. We couldn't do it. Why? Because of the guy we're going to talk about today in many ways. So here we are. Do we root for a tank? Did we blow the tank today? Or did we give ourselves an opportunity to run the table? I don't know. It's up to you. We were arguing about it. I'll tell you what, though. If we're looking at things just as objective gets, it is highly unlikely that the Jets run the table. Highly unlikely. But it was also highly unlikely that a guy who hasn't missed a snap in almost 10 years tears his Achilles on the 4th play of the game, too. That was highly unlikely. It happened. Right? It was highly unlikely that the Jets beat the Eagles. That happened. All kinds of crazy stuff happens every year. So it is what it is. So I don't know. I think we got our Christmas gift. I'm choosing to believe against the objectivity, right? The objectivity would say, dude, this is crazy. And the Jets just do this they dangle a little carrot, you go, ooh, and then they drop you on your face. They dangle it over the bridge and you fall over every single time. And here we are again. I'm buying it. I'm choosing to believe until the day comes that they say the Jets are out. Then maybe I'll root for the tank. And by that time, right, we'll already have blew it. We're already picked 12. I don't know. Maybe. So it's a fun day. The Jets scored 30 offensive points in the second half alone. Could you imagine? What does this do? Let me take this off. It's hot in there. Look what it's doing to my poor head. The Jets scored 30 points in the second half. It begs the question, what if we started scoring in the first half? What if those 2 drives, just those 2 drives you got in the end zone? Wow, that's 44 points. Oh, my God. What could have been, right? Zach played well enough to give us 44 points. Yeah, maybe. Maybe he did. And that's good. I want you to know that. We heard this week that the Jets have informed one Zack Wilson that they intend to trade him at the completion of this season or the beginning of next off season, whatever. When the season opens again, right? They're going to trade him. So what does that tell you? They're going to let it rip, as they said this week. And so Zack gets an opportunity to play for his Jets life if he wants that. But even let's say, okay, you're getting traded. It's like an audition. Which team, like maybe an actual team wants you, not to be their third, not to be their backup. Maybe a team will believe in you like they did Sam Darnold. Maybe. You play lights out the last couple games. But if he does that, maybe, just maybe, this was the motivation he needed. You know, we have all these conversations right now. Here's another great question. What would have happened if the Jets never benched Zack Wilson? I don't know. What would have happened? What do you think? Let me know in the comments before I continue. Stop the video right now and say, here's what I think before you talked, Bean. Okay? That's what you do. So do you think that we would have won those 2 games that Tim Boyle started? Maybe the Falcons. I mean, it was a very beatable team, right? Maybe. Could have done that. Maybe, just maybe, we would now be on a 3-game win streak. I mean, who knows, right? But the thing is, in order to get to that idea that if Zack was never benched, we would have this, we could have that, you got to negate the reason he was benched in the first place, right? Saleh, I mean, I think we all can agree, right? Wherever you stand on the Zack spectrum, I think we can all agree Saleh has been a supporter of Zack Wilson. Joe Douglas has clearly been a supporter of Zack Wilson. The team has been, at least vocally, last year not so much. This year they have been outwardly supportive of Zack Wilson, right? So the idea that the team like screwed Zack Wilson, I don't think is accurate. It's very one-sided thinking, and it's not, looking at the whole picture. But let's do this. Let's just for 1 second. I did this at the end of the stream because people were going nuts. Number one, there's a term out there called Zack Wilson truthers. And I got told this week that truther is not a name that they like to be called. So I didn't know. I had no idea. I'll be real honest. I thought that was just a name we were calling. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's kind of a thing. It's kind of come into our overall vernacular in this country. Like truther means somebody, this group over here that thinks this thing, right? But let's take a look real quick at the definition of truther. Again, I did this in the game stream. Let's take a look.
Truther.
Ooh. So we're saying the right word, okay?
Truther.
There it is. So here's what it is. A person who doubts the generally accepted account of an event, believing that an official conspiracy exists to conceal the true explanation, a conspiracy theorist, right? So now you can shred that a little bit, and you can take out the conspiracy. We're not truthers because we don't necessarily believe there's a conspiracy. Okay, fair. But let's look at the main beef of that one. A person who doubts the generally accepted account of an event, right? So when Zack Wilson throws, let's take a look. Zack Wilson against the Buffalo Bills, his most recent game, the game that he was benched in. Zack Wilson was 7 for 15. He threw 46.7% completion percentage. He had 1 touchdown and 1 interception. The Jets said enough is enough with this guy. He clearly, he's out of sorts. He looks toast. And you could see it in the game. He looked like Zack Wilson has looked so many times. Deer in the headlights, lost, can't see the field, nervous, happy feet, all the stuff, right? So the Jets saw the same thing, and they pulled him. Even though the quarterback we had on deck was not an NFL quarterback, right? We know this. And even the guys who knew Tim Boyle sucked were still like, you got to pull this. You have to. You have to. Even if it's only to show that the next 2 guys are even worse. And then you get it, whatever. You got to do it. You can't keep going. It's just like last year when Steve Young finally came out in the Jaguars game and said, you got to sit this kid. He was his biggest supporter. He said, he's getting worse. He's shell-shocked. He's done. PTSD. So when you look at that, the general consensus, right, the agreed upon, let's look at it again. The generally accepted account of an event is that Zack was, even though there are other problems, drops, penalties, offensive line, play calling, all those things are real. The main issue was that the quarterback was a complete mess and a shell. That's the generally accepted account of the event. Truthers say, no, it's none of those things. It's this. It's the O-line. It's the no running game. It's the Hackett. It's all the stuff. So that's a truther, right? And you buy 3 years of this. Same shit. Same story over and over. So we got into that discussion. So I'm just saying, I'm calling you truther because that's the thing we're calling you. If there's a better term, Zack, Zackies? I don't know, like Swifty? Zackies? I'll do Zackies. I just want people to know what I'm talking about. That's it. I didn't choose it. I didn't make it. I'm just jumping on because that's the thing people are saying. So you got to say it in order to have the conversation, right? That's very, very simple. So the Zack truthers are saying things like, Zack, it's not his fault. It's never been his fault. It was LaFleur. It was whatever. Now it's Hackett, the offensive line, and all those things can be part of it for sure, right? So when you look at this idea that Zack Wilson shouldn't have been benched, the data supporting that is very, very flimsy, right? So it got us to Buffalo. The data supported that string of from the Giants to the Chargers to the Raiders to the Bills, Zack was completely inept, right? And he got some yards at the end of the game, kind of a thing. I think, the Chargers, he got 263 yards. I was at that game. Let me just tell you, it was abysmal. 263 just feels wrong that it even happened that way. So it's like, but let's look at the real stats. The real most important stat is this. This season, this is what Zack Wilson has given us. He's given us, including this week's game. So let's look at his touchdowns this year, right? Points. We got 1 in Buffalo, 1 in Dallas. Great touchdown to Garrett Wilson in Dallas. 2 against the Chiefs. 1 against the Giants. And 1 against the Bills. And then he had 2 today. So collectively, that's 8. He's given us 8 touchdowns this year. 8. Now you look at the turnovers. As we try to find support for Zack Wilson, which even guys like myself who are very kind of low on him, I don't really believe in him anymore at all, but I'm rooting for him. And I try to find positive. I want to believe. I want to below Benzad, dude. I do. I want to below Benzad. But when you look at things, it's hard. So you find stuff. Interceptions. He has mitigated the propensity to throw interceptions. He's done a decent job. Decent. So we got 8 touchdowns, including this week. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 interceptions. Now, 2 of those in Dallas at the, it was, I defend it. There's still interceptions, so we got to count it. But I defend the whole atmosphere and everything. So he's got 7 interceptions to 8 touchdowns. Okay, not great, but he's still +1. But there's where the illusion lies. And this is where I think Zack Wilson supporters forget. And we saw this week. We saw it again. We saw it in Kansas City. We call that Zack's best game. Arguably this week's is better. We call it Zack's best game. But he fumbled the ball and we never got it back. Now, there was some egregious, terrible penalties, right? The hold and lack of. Jermaine Johnson, the holding, it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. So that all is part of it. But the truth is as good as he played, he still pulled the Zack Wilson thing and he fumbled the ball and we never got it back. That was our last offensive series. He lost us the chance to win the game. It's the truth, right? So that's where I'm going. I'm going fumble. So we have 7 interceptions to 8 touchdowns. Now let's look at his fumbles. He had 1 today that he lost. And I applaud the effort. I do. I said it during the stream. Hey, it happened to be the only points that they got. This fumble, again, could have flipped the whole game. It was only 14 points at that point. So all of a sudden they're in the end zone. And they cut it in half, right? So you got one fumble today. So then you got two. You had one in against the Raiders. You had 3 fumbles against the Chargers. 3. So that's 5. Then he had 2 against the Giants. That's 7. He had 2 against the Broncos. That's 9. He had 1 against the Chiefs, the big one. That's 10. So he had 10 fumbles, 7 picks. So he has 17 turnovers and 8 touchdowns, including this great game today. That's what we're talking about. Now, are we rooting for the guy? Hell yeah. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. Like I shared earlier, I am making the choice to buy in. I will not root for the tank. I've been told I'm an idiot today. I've been told I'm an idiot for years, but particularly dealing with this, I've been called a moron. Just about this. Now, we do know that our rooting has nothing to do with it anyway, right? When they say, hey, focus on this week's game. I'm like, dude, I have nothing. I'm in Virginia. I can think about whatever I want to think about. But I get it, right? I'm a football fan too. I get it. So we root for the tank or you root for the wins. Right now, like I said, I am choosing to root for wins. Why? Because the Jets still have a chance to make the playoffs. Now, what is that contingent upon? Well, it's contingent upon Zack having a game. It really is. There were many plays, just like in each other game, plenty of plays, as bad as the offensive line is, like some of the sacks, Zack had no chance. And he did a good job in this game of, recognizing somebody's coming. He's got 1.5 seconds, throw it. He did that this week. Fantastic. That's all we're asking, man. That's it. If the line breaks down, just make sure it's on a 12-yard sack. He took some bad sacks today. One got us out of field goal range, but more than usual, he took care of it. He threw the ball away, even got some completions on that shit. So nice. But let's look at the game. So Zack Wilson, it was 27 for 36. 301 yards. 2 touchdowns and a fumble. So that's a lost fumble, right? So, amazing. Amazing. It's his second 300-yard game in his career. 32 games, 31 games. Second 300-yard game. Now, we did have a 298, so you could throw that in. So, let's call it 3. We'll throw that in there. It's his third 300-yard performance in his career. If we can do that, if he can just, the benching snapped him out of it, and Zack comes out of the shell, and he just decides, you know what? To hell with it. What do I care? I'm out of here. And just starts zipping it like he did against the Texans. The Jets got a chance. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. And I just refuse not to root for that. I refuse. I refuse not to root for it. But here's what I will say to the Zack Wilson Zackies. Since you don't like Truther. The Zackies. Here's what I will say. This game, we applaud it. We're happy with it. We rooted for it. And it gave us a good time. And we're all happy. For him, for us. Yay. Okay? This game does not mean that the last 4 clunkers did not exist. And somehow weren't his fault. Or that he didn't have a hand in it. Okay? Let's just say, or that all of last year, or 2021. It doesn't negate that stuff. And what I'll say is, guys, can we just enjoy it without the flood of like, see, you're all morons, motherfucker, yeah, Zack hater. Can we just like go, cool? Yeah, he's a Jet. He played well. He's been playing poorly, and we're happy. Can't we just do that? Can't we just get along, man? Breece Hall was just a dynamo today. Dominant. Breece Hall, 10 carries, 40 yards. Now, it doesn't look like it. 4 yards, 4-yard average, my favorite. But he also had 8 receptions for 86 yards and a touchdown. Breesy Breeserton, I love you. I love Brees Hall. He's way up there with my favorite Jets. And another one, Garrett Wilson, had himself another buck. 108 yards on 9 receptions, 12-yard average. Didn't make it into the end zone, but that's okay. It's the Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall show. So the idea that we can get these guys the ball, if we could just do it, we let them do the rest. If we could just do that, like against the Chargers, the weakest passing defense in the NFL when we played them, and we didn't test them once. That's not to say the play design didn't. Zach sucked in that game. And I'm not taking Hackett off the spit. You know what I mean? It was a weak game all around. But man, oh man. So here's where we are. I like to see the probability of the Jets running the table because it's going to happen. It's the script writers. You heard it here first. The dip into the abyss. And the Jets are going to come back. We're going to beat the Dolphins. We're going to split with the Dolphins in their house. Their overconfidence because the way they beat us and smacked us around, Mike White laughing on the sideline. They're going to, and Barrios, they're going to overconfidize this thing. And we're going to go down there and give them a right hook to the jaw that they just can't recover from in time. And we're going to beat them. That's going to be 2 in a row heading into the Washington game. We're going to be riding high, 3 in a row, 2 more to go. Got the Browns with Flacco. It's either going to be Flacco making us look like fools, or we're going to take advantage of that guy being an old stick figure, as good as their defense is. And then we got the Pats. Guys, we beat Miami, and this is on like Donkey Kong. You understand? You know what that means, Donkey Kong? Remember that guy throwing barrels all over the place? That's what we're talking about. Donkey Kong was pissed. He's pissed at Mario. That's what it's on like. Like Donkey Kong, I said. So we got all these guys, and they're all looking good. Izzy got himself in the show today. Lost him. He's a grand total of -1 yard. That's okay, Izzy. That's okay. We'll get you going, buddy. Xavier Gibson with his touchdown. It's fun times. I'm predicting Jets run the table. 9-8. Jets make the playoffs. Then we got a decision. Let me ask you this. Final question. One answer. If Zach runs the table, looks good. Sloppy, but good enough, we win, right? It's good. Good. We get into the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers is ready to come back. Do you ride the kid or do you stick in the Rusty Rodgers? Talk to me. What do you do at that point? Let me know. With that all said, have a great week. Enjoy Victory Monday. Don't argue about stupid stuff. Have a good time. And as always, go Jets.